So maybe you've heard about food combining and it's something you really want to experiment with, but it seems way too overwhelming and confusing. If this sounds like you, then watch this video and I'm going to go over some really basic guidelines to help make this transition a little easier. Hi guys, I'm Dr. Mona. I am making this video today all about food combining. And there's a lot to know about food combining. There's details I could go into, but I think this would be like a really good intro video just to give you some of the basics. I post a lot of this content in my Instagram stories or little tips, but I think you guys really want something a little more substantial you can refer back to. At least that's the feedback you've been giving me. So let's talk food combining and just kind of go over the basics. So when we're talking about food combining, there are different food categories. We've got fruits, we've got fat, we've got protein, and we've got starches. Now, some foods obviously have both protein and fat, or some foods, are starch, but they also contain a little bit of protein. That's okay. When we're talking about these different food categories, what I want you to remember is we're thinking about how they're digested in your stomach. I want you to picture your GI tract kind of like a conveyor belt or like train tracks. So if there's one thing in front, nothing else behind it can pass. So the order in which you eat your food, like let's say your food is all the different little cars or trains on it, really matters. So for example, if you eat something that's digested really slowly, let's say takes hours to digest, and then right after it you eat something that's digested really quickly, this one's going to be taking its time through your GI tract, and this food is just going to like speed up. They're going to interact. They're going to just kind of cause chaos in your stomach. You're going to feel that bloatingness and those bubbles and that gas and that popping, just all the bad stuff. And that's when you're going to feel really tired. Like that feeling can really drop your energy. So it's really important to eat food that digests the most quickly first, and then, follow it in order of what else takes, longer to digest. If you've ever watched my content, you've heard me always say eat fruit in the morning on an empty stomach, and that's because fruit is digested so quickly. It takes about 20 minutes to digest, and you really shouldn't eat fruit after any other meal. Because it's digested so quickly, if you eat it after like a starch or a protein, it's gonna get backed up in your stomach and it's gonna cause a lot of bloating. This is why I always stress have fruit in the morning for breakfast before you eat anything else, because I'm trying to simplify it for you. I don't want you guys to have to go through your day, especially if you're starting out, and think like, how many hours has it been since I've eaten this? Can I have fruit? So just as a good easy rule, have fruit in the morning. That way you'll limit your sugar intake anyway. This is also a good tip to think about when you're out at restaurants or even at home when you think that fruit for a healthy dessert is healthy. Actually not, which breaks my heart a little because I love fruit and I don't want to make it difficult for you, but I would really avoid fruit after meals. Stick with it in the morning and like a green smoothie and you're good to go. So now let's talk about what else is digested after that. So now we've got starches. So I'm talking about like pastas, rice, quinoa, bread, all that starchy stuff. You can look it up. And even starchy vegetables like potatoes. These take about 2 hours to digest. So I would really recommend having these as like your middle meal of the day. I like to break it up as like one food group for breakfast, one for lunch, and one for dinner. So you can combine all different starches together. They combine well together. So you could have like, potatoes and some quinoa, or you could have some cut up squash with some brown rice. Vegetables go with anything. That's another thing to keep in mind. Vegetables are a free for all. So you could have, steamed veggies with rice. You could have some toast. Anything you can have like in the grain category, just make sure you have. And I'll make sure I like post a link or something under this video to give you like little categories of what's a grain so you can mix any of those. So grains take about 2 hours to digest. Now, when you want to have protein takes about 4 hours to digest. The biggest no-no is combining a starch and a protein, okay? I want to just give you this little example. When you eat a protein, your body releases certain gastric enzymes that make it acidic. That's what you need to break down protein. You can look this up. This is a fact. You need an acidic environment for protein. When you eat starches, they release a different kind of enzyme, which makes the environment alkaline. So think about when you have a positive and a negative and they combine. Obviously, it becomes neutral. This is the same thing for if you have an acid environment and an alkaline environment, they neutralize each other out. Then all this food just doesn't get digested at all. So the protein doesn't get digested, the starch doesn't get digested. It starts to putrefy in your stomach, which basically means rot. And then it just ends up causing, a bacteria environment. This is where more yeast and fungus and bacteria can grow. This makes the whole environment more acidic, and this can lead to lead to toxins and cancer. and, lead you to get bloated. So I know it seems like, oh, it's not the end of the world if I have, protein with a starch, but I really highly recommend looking into this. This is like years and years of research and studied medicine. Definitely separate these food groups. So after you have your grains, when you go to dinner, this is when you want to have your protein. So really what you're doing is when you wake up, you're starting light and moving to heavy. So you've got your grains for lunch and you're going to have your protein. And this is included in animal or plant-based protein, whether or not you're vegan. So if you're having like a piece of fish, if you're having tofu, if you're having beans, if you're having lentils, all of that falls under the protein category. Now, fruit obviously doesn't combine with anything. Vegetables combine with everything. So if you want to have a smoothie in the morning with some fruit like an apple, you want to have some celery, some spinach, greens, perfect. That's great. If you want to have some vegetables with your lunch, let's say you have like a stir-fried veggie with rice or pasta with vegetables on top, or a butternut squash and you want to have some quinoa on the side, like anything you want, all of the veggies go with everything. And that's also a great idea for dinner. If you have like a protein with a mixed green salad or some steamed vegetables, it's just good to have like a good, food that pairs well with everything. Now last, let's talk about fats. So fats, again, nothing with fruit. Remember, we're going to leave fruit alone. They combine okay with protein, but very, very well with starches. So this is also going to give you some more options here. So an amazing meal would be like an avocado on toast, because you've got avocado, which is the fat. Even though it's technically a fruit, it's a fat when it comes to food combining. So you've got a fat on top of a starch. Or if you even want to put an avocado into like a brown rice bowl with a bunch of vegetables, it's an amazing dish. Highly recommend it. You can add coconut oil to different fats when you're like, let's say you're cooking rice and you want to like even fry it a little bit, you could add some coconut oil. Fats are okay with protein. If you want to have a little bit of oil with your salad when you're having like, a piece of fish or some tofu or some tempeh, that's okay, but try to avoid mixing it too much. This might get a little confusing throughout the day when you don't know what to eat, what time to eat it. So what I recommend, you could stick to all grains all day and then all proteins the next day. Just have your fruit in the morning and just, maybe one day you could do a lot of beans and you could do like some tempeh or some tofu or some fish. Or another day you could do like some brown rice for lunch, some pasta for dinner, or just stick with your starches for lunch and your proteins for dinner. Now, if in that middle time you get hungry between, eating a starch and a protein, there's some food that's just combined well with everything and you can have. So you could have a fat. So something like chia seed pudding, which is so easy to make. You just add almond milk to chia seeds, put it in the fridge overnight, and you've got pudding in the morning. It's pretty amazing. You could have a smoothie with some chia seeds and coconut oil and like some spinach and ice. You could have a green juice, a green salad. Remember, vegetables are like your free-for-all, so you can have them at any time of day. Veggie sticks, salad, like obviously you need to eat more than just vegetables, but I just mean as your transition in between meals. Those are the basics. That's what I would stick with at first. If it ever gets too confusing, don't beat yourself up over it, but these are just kind of basics to go by. If you like this video, please comment, let me know how you feel. I'd love to hear from you, and I would love if you'd subscribe to my page. Let me know what else you guys want me to post content on, and I hope you enjoyed.